Children have such imaginations, to them an abandoned refrigerator can be a jail in the Old West.
In the 1970s, doing well didn't always mean showing off. It often looked smaller than that. The upgrades people noticed without saying much about them. And if you saw these growing up, you knew the family was doing all right. 1. A second phone in the house.
And send over a couple of boxes of your best cigars.
Extension phones are so convenient, but some are also extensions of yourself.
Yes, a case of champagne. Make it 2.
Like Design Line, the extension phones you actually buy and own.
One phone in the house was standard. It usually lived in the kitchen, on the wall, or in some central place where everyone could hear it ring and everyone could accidentally listen to your conversation. That was normal. But a second phone changed the whole feeling of the home. Suddenly, the house had options. Calls could happen in 2 places. Someone could be talking in one room while the main line stayed free. The phone no longer belonged only to the household. It could belong to a person. And if that second phone was a princess phone sitting in a bedroom, softly lit and stylish on a nightstand or vanity, it felt like something out of a magazine. It wasn't just functional, it was glamorous. A private phone line nearby made a teenager feel important, and it made the house feel modern. There was also a quiet status to it because everyone knew it wasn't necessary. Families could get by with one phone perfectly well, so if a house had 2, it meant they had moved beyond basic needs into comfort and convenience. In the 1970s, that said plenty. 2. A sunken living room. Nothing said, "This house is a little fancy," quite like stepping inside and realizing the living room was lower than the rest of the house. Just 1 or 2 steps down somehow changed everything. It made the room feel separate, intentional, and more important than an ordinary place with 4 walls and a couch. You weren't just entering another room, you were arriving somewhere. The furniture always seemed to look better in a sunken living room. Sofas felt more dramatic, coffee tables looked more stylish, and conversation somehow seemed more sophisticated the moment everyone was seated a few inches below the main floor. Even watching television felt upgraded, as if the room itself had been designed for gathering. Kids loved it for a completely different reason. To them, it felt exciting, almost theatrical. There were steps indoors for no practical reason at all, and that alone made it memorable. It turned an ordinary visit into something special. And that may be why it became such a symbol of doing well. A sunken living room didn't solve a problem. It didn't save time or reduce effort. It existed purely because someone wanted the house to feel elevated, modern, and a little more impressive than average. In any decade, that's a luxury. 3. An intercom system in the house. Nothing felt more futuristic than pressing a button in the kitchen and talking through the walls. An intercom system turned an ordinary house into something out of tomorrow. Parents could call kids to dinner without shouting. Rooms could communicate like offices. Visitors would immediately notice it and usually want to test it. Even if it was only used half the time, it didn't matter. The point was that your house could do it, and in the 1970s, that was impressive. 4. A built-in dishwasher.
Pete, when KitchenAid comes out with a new dishwasher, you'd expect it to be quite an improvement. Right, Pete? Well, let's see. These adjustable racks, fold-down prongs make loading easy. What, will this new KitchenAid really clean these? Now the test, Pete. Press the energy saver.
Testing the new dishwasher?
Well, Pete was.
Well, does Pete see why dishwasher owners say KitchenAid's best?
Ask Pete.
There was something undeniably impressive about a dishwasher that was built right into the kitchen cabinets like it had always belonged there. It wasn't rolled in, added later, or sitting awkwardly in the corner. It was part of the house itself, tucked under the counter beside the sink like a permanent promise that life might be getting easier. Even people who still washed dishes by hand noticed it. A built-in dishwasher represented more than clean plates. It suggested efficiency, progress, and the idea that modern living was finally arriving in everyday homes. After dinner, instead of facing a sink full of dishes and a wet dish rag, there was another option. It also changed how the kitchen looked. Counters seemed cleaner. The room felt updated. The whole space gave off the impression that someone had invested in making life better, not just functional. And that's why it mattered as a status symbol. It wasn't flashy, but it was visible proof that the household had moved one step ahead. In the 1970s, having a built-in dishwasher meant you weren't just keeping up. You were improving the way life worked. 5. A garage door opener. Before everyone had one, a garage door opener felt borderline magical. You pressed a button and the door lifted by itself. No getting out in the rain, no wrestling with a heavy door, no running back to the car before it closed. Just a smooth mechanical rise that made every arrival feel a little more sophisticated. Kids loved it because it felt like a machine from tomorrow. Adults loved it because it made life easier. That combination usually meant success. If this brought back memories you hadn't thought about in years, make sure you subscribe here on YouTube and follow me on Facebook. I post new videos like this every week, and there's always something that takes you right back. 6. A color TV people gathered around.
General Electric wants to show you what can happen when my picture leaves the broadcaster's control room. My color can change as my picture travels through transmission lines, satellites, and TV towers. So every GE VIR television uses computer-like circuitry to adjust my color on many programs according to the broadcaster's VIR color signal.
A color television wasn't just another appliance. It became the center of the room. Neighbors came over for big events. Kids sat cross-legged on the floor. Adults commented on how good everything looked. Even programs you'd seen before felt new in color. Owning a nice color TV in the 1970s wasn't just about entertainment. It meant your home had the thing people wanted to come see. And any object that attracts guests automatically feels like a status symbol. 7. Matching luggage sets. Hardshell luggage in coordinated colors had a very specific message. This family travels, maybe not constantly, maybe not internationally, but enough that they owned luggage designed as a set instead of a random collection of old bags and borrowed suitcases. Matching luggage looked organized, prepared, and polished sitting by the front door. Even before the trip began, it made the whole family seem more put together. Travel style counted, and a matching set counted twice. 8. Central air conditioning. In the 1970s, central air wasn't assumed. A lot of homes still relied on fans, open windows, box fans in hallways, or one determined window unit trying to cool half the house by itself. So when someone had central air, you noticed it the second you walked in. The house felt calm, quiet, evenly cool. No rattling machines in the window, no strategic closing of doors, no arguments about who got the room with the fan. Just comfort everywhere. And on a hot summer day, that felt rich. 9. A console stereo in the living room.
At Pioneer, we don't build a high-fidelity receiver the way some of our competitors do. Instead of a pressboard bottom, our SX780 has a metal one that limits interference. It has power meters and a DC power supply for richer bass. It's things like this that have made Pioneer #1 among people who care about music.
A big console stereo with records nearby wasn't just music equipment. It was furniture, beautiful wood cabinet, serious speakers, maybe a lid that lifted with importance. When someone put on an album, it became part of the evening. People listened differently when music came from something that substantial. It made the room feel grown up, stylish, and current. If a family had a nice stereo and a stack of records beside it, you assumed they were doing well and enjoying it. And I'd love to hear from you. What small sign told you someone was doing well in the 1970s? Let me know in the comments. 10. A freezer stocked with convenience foods.
Oh, here they come again. And I'm frightened because a child can become trapped in me and suffocate in 10 minutes. Children have such imaginations. To them, an abandoned refrigerator can be a jail in the Old West.
A freezer full of TV dinners, frozen desserts, vegetables, snacks, and ready-made meals was more than cold storage. It was abundance. It meant choices. It meant backup plans. It meant dinner could happen quickly if the day got busy. In an era when convenience foods felt modern and exciting, having a freezer stocked with them suggested a household that was prepared and comfortable. Opening that freezer and seeing it full felt like security. And security always looks like success. The interesting thing about status in the 1970s is how practical it often looked. A cooler house, an easier chore, better sound, more comfort, a little convenience where there used to be extra effort. These weren't always flashy signs, but people noticed them anyway. And if you grew up around them, you probably still remember how impressive they felt. Everything I featured today is linked in the description below. Go check it out. If this took you back, Click the one on your screen. It's all the small signs you were doing well in the 1970s.